Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to my webinar on how to adapt and thrive with JAMstack. I'm going to be talking about what it is, why you should care about it, and how you use it. So just a little introduction about myself. My name is Anant. I'm 26 years old, and I'm a platform engineer here at Anant Corporation. I've been with the company for about 2 years now, and I currently live in Washington, D.C. So first and foremost, what is JAMstack? JAM stands for JavaScript API Markup. It's a web development architecture based on client-side JavaScript, usable APIs, and pre-built markup. It is a new way of building sites and apps that delivers better performance, high security, lower cost of scaling, and a better developer experience regardless of what technologies you're using. Stacks are generally just a combination of several technologies used to create a web mobile application. So JAMstack is a combination of JavaScript API and markup. In this ideology, Stack does not include operating systems, specific web servers, backend programming languages, or databases. So what gave rise to JAMstack? To understand this, we need to see what makes it so different from the traditional way of web development. This graphic is a very stripped down view between the legacy way of serving websites and JAMstack. In the traditional view, the building and hosting of a website are coupled together. Say a user requests a page. The file gets processed and served following a long series of interactions between a database, backend code, server, browser, and layers of caching. Oftentimes, the core updates are pushed to production servers via file transfer protocol, and databases need to be maintained or updated. And then finally, the content updates are pushed through traditional CMSs such as WordPress and Drupal. This isn't necessarily a bad way of doing things, but it could be better, much better. In the JAMstack workflow, the building and hosting of a website are decoupled. Say a user requests a page. The file is already compiled and gets directly served to the browser from the content delivery network. Core updates are pushed through Git, and the site gets rebuilt entirely by static site generators such as Gatsby.js. Then finally, the content updates are pushed through Git or static site content management system. The problem with legacy web is that it made everything very complicated when comparing it to the technology we have available today. It relied on complex applications and complex servers. A traditional website is a program that has to run on a web server at all times. Running sites this way needlessly slows down and provides way too many opportunities for attack, and is expensive to scale. These are the hurdles that JAMstack set out to eliminate. So the first pillar, JavaScript. JavaScript allows us to provide all of the dynamic and interactive bits that we might not have if we're just serving plain HTML. This is where a lot of the times you'll see popular UI frameworks such as React and Vue. They make building apps simpler and more organized by providing component APIs and tooling that compile down to a simple HTML file. Those HTML files include assets such as images, CSS, and the actual JavaScript that is ultimately served to a browser for your favorite content delivery networks such as Netlify or Zang. The second pillar is APIs. So APIs are essential to making JAMstack applications dynamic. Whether it's authentication or search, your application will use JavaScript to make an HTTP request to another provider, which will ultimately enhance the experience in one form or the other. This dependence on APIs gave rise to the need of relying on several different APIs within a single project. For instance, if you have a headless WordPress API where you host your blog posts, a Cloudinary account where you store your specialized media, and an Elasticsearch that provides your search functionality. They all work together to provide a single experience for the people using your site. This concept is known as content mesh. This is an infrastructure layer for decoupled sites that stitches together content systems in a modern development environment while optimizing website delivery for performance. The plan is to select the best solutions tailored to specific use cases like e-commerce or blogging. This provides a modern framework for rapid iteration, and it generates lightning-fast websites out of the box. This concept empowers developers by preserving the while preserving the workflows of content creators. And finally, the third pillar, markup. markup is the first part that is served and is the most important piece. To be consistent app, the HTML needs to be served statically, which basically means not being dynamically rendered from a server. If you're piecing a page together and serving it with PHP, it's not a JAMstack app. If you load and serve a single HTML file from storage that constructs an app with JavaScript, then it's a JAMstack app. That being said, it doesn't mean that we always have to build 100% of the app within the browser. Tools like Gatsby and other static site generators allow us to pull in some or all of our API sources at build time and render the pages out as HTML files. For example, let's say we have a WordPress blog. We can pull in all of the posts and ultimately create a new HTML file for each post. That means we're going to be able to serve a precompiled version of the page directly to the browser, which usually creates a quicker first paint and a faster experience for your visitor. So I just want to make a quick side note about hosting. So yes, your site is technically getting hosted somewhere, but not in the traditional sense. You don't have a server that you're maintaining where you upload your files with an FTP client. Instead, you're using a service such as Netlify. By using a service such as Netlify, your HTML and static assets are getting served from object storage. And on the tail end of that, you typically have a content delivery network which caches those files at locations all around the world, making your pages load faster for the people visiting your site. So why should I care about JAMstack? Number one, speed and performance. The fact that you're serving JAMstack apps as static files directly from a CDN usually means your app is going to load fast. Gone are the days where the server has to spend time building the page before responding. Now you can serve the pages as plain HTML as is, or with some type of client-side hydration like you'd see with React. 2, scalability. Since you're serving your files from static hosting, that basically gives you infinite scalability. Most providers will make this claim, meaning you'll have no trouble letting any influx of people reaching your site. 3, maintenance. The foundation of your static site isn't a server, meaning you don't need to maintain it. Whether it's Netlify, S3, or any other provider, your static HTML, CSS, and JS are maintained for you headache-free. 4, security. Doubling down on the lack of server that you have to personally maintain, you don't really need to worry as much about locking down ways for people to intrude. Instead, you need to focus mostly on permissions to lock down private content and assure your users that their personal information isn't publicly available. And number 5, cost. More often than not, JAMstack sites are going to run cheaper than their server-side counterparts. Hosting static assets is cheap, and now your page is being served at the same rate. That also brings me to note that all this also depends on your APIs. As much as these Freud's too for the static aspect of your site, you need to keep in mind that you still might need to depend on some type of API for your client-side experience. And it's always best to try and take advantage of these requests at compile time when you can, such as with the static site generator. Otherwise, you'll need to weigh down the amount of hits you're making to a dynamic endpoint and how it impacts all the points above for your overall experience. Okay, how to get started with JAMstack. So JavaScript is everywhere nowadays, and nowhere is it more noticeable in the evolution of these frameworks in the last few years. They've transcended the world of browsers and become the go-to for single-page applications, progressive web applications, and mobile apps everywhere. React, Vue, and Angular are the holy trinity of Java frameworks, so you can't go wrong there. Simply put, SSG takes your site content, applies it to templates, generates a structure for purely static HTML files ready to be delivered to viewers. These popular JS frameworks I was just mentioning give birth to some of the most powerful static site generators out there. Gatsby and Next.js for React, and nothing for Vue. Content management systems are really great for a few things. They manage user permissions, editor roles, and obviously content. So why not use them only for these tasks? That's exactly what headless CMSs do, finally decoupling the backend administrative tasks from the front-end views. Most headless CMSs will fit with whatever front-end tech you're using, while others are built to work only with specific tools. And finally, JAMstack sites being built today are more hyper-dynamic than static. The current API economy and explosion in software as a service offers an interesting a la carte approach. In other words, you can cherry pick the dedicated external services you need and adopt a truly modular development stack. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the demo part of this webinar, where I'm going to just walk you through how to set up a simple JAMstack application using React. In the first example, JAMstack application using Gatsby.js. In the first example, we're just going to be reading data in through Markdown files. And the second one, we're going to be using Butter CMS, which is a free content management system where we're going to be drawing in a blog post data. So first, I'll be using a starter clip. Apologies for taking so long. I don't know why. There we go. Sweet. And now we're just gonna launch this app so that you guys get a chance to see what it looks like before we actually start making changes. Awesome. So it should be live. Awesome. So we got the app up and running. So now we're just going to stop this and go ahead and make the necessary changes so that we can actually start reading in Markdown files. The first thing that we need to do is add in the plugin to read in Markdown files for Gatsby. While that's going on, we need to go in and make some changes to the config file here to actually call in that plugin. Let's see here. And you should be good there. Okay, plugin was added successfully. Within the root folder, we need to create a new folder called content, and this is going to hold our actual Markdown files for a blog post. Desktop, content. In the interest of time, I already created the Markdown files, but they just follow a similar format where you kind of just need to provide a path, date, and a title. If you don't, Gatsby's not going to read in those Markdowns correctly, and your app will crash. So just be mindful of that. Let's see. Next, also in the root, we need to create a new file. This is going to be Gatsby node. And essentially, this is just going to be initializing the file, initializing the Markdown plugin, and making sure it knows where to go and get those files. And then last few steps is just creating a new folder, templates. and a new file. And we're going to add in some TypeScript, which is a superset of JavaScript. And pretty much this is just going to tell, we're just going to lay out how we want our blog post to be viewed on our site. Save that, blog post. Awesome. And that should be good on our end. So if you come back here, run Gatsby develop. Okay, awesome. Looks like it went through. So this is something that I don't know if you guys have noticed down here. Right now it says 6 pages, and if we go up to earlier before we started the changes, it's saying 4 pages. So that obviously is just like a good indicator that, you know, the 2 pages, the 2 markdown files that we added, they were added correctly, and they, you know, so yeah, like I was saying, so now it's saying that, you know, 6 pages have been created. So that means it's probably, you know, picking up the 2 markdown files that I added. So if we go back to the website loads, and now if we go to the extension that we have, it was blogs post 1. So then voila, there. So now it's reading in the first markdown post that I added. And then if we go and change this, it should be in the second markdown post. So that's pretty cool. You know, obviously we got a site up and running in not a lot of time. So that's cool to see. However, there are a few problems when it comes to Markdown. One, not everybody knows how to use and format Markdown. You know, for your average developer, you know, it's not that, you know, it's easy, you know, to like kind of go in to add the files to make sure they're the same format so that, you know, the program actually like reads it properly and it doesn't break down. But, you know, sometimes, yeah, you may have someone who is just not tech savvy, and they may need to rely on other tools to convert like Word documents to Markdown, and you know that just creates a bunch of unnecessary hurdles. And 2, at the same time, new builds need to be triggered, you know, to get the new content up on the website. And again, you know, for the average developer, not a hard task at all. But you know, for somebody else, again, who isn't tech savvy, this again just adds all these hurdles. So to kind of, you know, fix the issue that we have with Markdown, we're going to be integrating our app with Butter CMS. So let's see, first one, to stop this. And one of the first things we have to do would be to obviously add that Gatsby plugin. So while that's going in, we have to kind of go in and start editing some of our files. Big one just being, you know, we don't need this plugin anymore. So this one, you can just remove it. And instead, we're going to be writing in the Butter CMS as well. As you can see, this one is going to be passing in a environment token, which is just like the API that we get from our Butter account. I already have my .env file. I'm just going to add this to my repo, you know, just because I don't want my key leaking out onto the internet. So there's another change that we have to do at our config file, which is include these 3 lines of code. Pretty much just telling the program to access the .env file, otherwise we're not going to be able to access the content in Butter CMS. Okay, so that's in. Let's see. We have to make sure that our .env files here, paste, perfect. So that's in there. And then there are two other edits that we got to do. One is in Gatsby.node because obviously all this code is trying to read in Markdown files, but we don't need the Markdown element anymore. So I'm going to replace that with somewhat identical code, but obviously this way it's just targeting everything that we're reading in from our CMS. Perfect. And along with that, we also have to edit the blog post TypeScript file, because again, code is for Markdown, and we don't need that anymore. And that should be about it for any of the changes that we need to make. So I'm going to run this in the background, and then I'm just going to walk you guys through Butler's CMS real quick. Awesome. So the only other step that you need to do after making those necessary changes to your code is obviously to come to your dashboard and create the individual posts. Again, just to save time, I already went and did that. So with these posts, the only thing, after creating the post, the only thing you may have to change out is the slug, because that's what you'll be using to view on your app. But you know, once everything's done on this end, then you should be good to go. So let's go back here, and then okay, seems like our application ran. And if you notice again, it says 7 pages. Before we had 4 when we didn't have any files. We had 6 pages when we added the 2 Markdown files, and now we have 3 files in our CMS, which makes it 7. So again, it's just a good indicator that you know, everything's connecting properly. So let's go to localhost. All right, seems like the app is working. So again, if we say go here to this post, we go, and the slug is example-2. So if we go here, blogs, example-2, it should open up, and it is. It's opening up the second blog post. We got 1. It's connected to this first blog post. We got 3. Third blog post. So now, obviously, so now we have our JAMstack app that is connected to our CMS. It just helps to eliminate the issues that were arising with Markdown files. So after this, the only other step is to kind of launch your website on some sort of you know, content delivery network, such as Netflix or Zeit. I went ahead and did that again, just to, you know, in the interest of time. My go-to content delivery network is Netlify. So this is the app right now, and on the final app, obviously I made some changes to make sure that the posts are viewable on the home page. This way, obviously, you can just click and view, and you don't have to worry about, you know, having to go and change the URL or anything like that. And I mean, yeah, this is just pretty much an example of how to get up and you know, a simple JAMstack up and running. Obviously, like this use case, in this essence, it's just building up a very simple blog. But you know, that can be applied to anything else. You know, going from like e-commerce and so on. It's you know, possibilities are virtually limitless, just because you know, you're not confined to like a single framework or some sort of other, you know, content delivery network. There's so many different tools out there that you can use, and a lot of them are becoming more, you know, seamless between each other. Okay, so in closing, just to wrap up everything that I've kind of gone through in this. So JAMstack was invented to provide a new way of building websites and sites that delivers better performance, high security, low cost of scaling, and a better developer experience. JAMstack is not about specific technologies. It's a modern web development architecture based on client-side JavaScript, reusable APIs, and pre-built market. It is important to note that the JAMstack isn't bulletproof. While discussing a switch to it, more tech-savvy clients and developers may bring up, some legitimate concerns, and they're valid. But I also would like to kind of, address those, where there'll be, where in one instance, people say that, the JAMstack setup is nice, but they need to handle more dynamic features on the sites. What you'll notice is that the JAMstack sites built today aren't static anymore. They're actually hyper dynamic. So regarding the presumed lack of server-side, features, you should refer, to all the added functionalities and third-party APIs that you can connect with your sites. Another concern that people have will be that they'll notice that static CMSs are cool and all, but they also need to manage user permissions, editor roles. Again, just like we were talking with the decoupled CMSs, a lot of the times it may not be as flashy as a full suite of shiny new tools, and it also sort of defeats the purpose of a full JAMstack. But and oftentimes these CMS platforms do the trick for you in terms of your administrative needs, and it could also significantly alleviate migration costs of if your content already exists in a traditional CMS. Also, with the extensive offer in headless CMS and server functions, there's practically no backend functionalities that are off limits anymore in today's day and age. So yeah, with that, that kind of comes close to our webinar. Again, if you happen to have any questions about, what was discussed today, please feel free to contact me or the company. I'm always looking to work and collaborate with other people in the space that we work in. So always feel free to reach out. And with that, I'd like to open up the floor to questions. All right. Seems like nobody has any questions, which is pretty good. But I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for coming to my webinar. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.